Have you dreamed of buying a home in Florida? Not really sure how to do it, how much it's going to cost, or where to go? Well, worry no more. I'm here to help. When I say me and my new mate, Ken Pozek. Watch this video and learn all you need to know about buying your Florida home here on Disney for Brits. Hey D4Bers, David here. How are you? I've got a treat for you this week, something a little bit different, the first of a new series that I'm calling Disney4Brits Meets. And this week is something which will be of interest to any of you that have ever wanted to own property in Florida. I know it was a dream of mine long before COVID, and I searched around the internet and found various realtors, that's estate agents to you and me, in Orlando and various other places, and I came across this guy called Ken Pozek. Ken's a really easy guy to watch and explains things really well, and that's really important because there's a massive difference between the Orlando market and the UK market. So I carried on watching, and at one point I actually wrote him an email, said, Ken, it would be great to me, I'd love to have a chat with you and share with all my D4Bers. So what you're going to see is a conversation between me and Ken, all done through the magic of Zoom, and I hope you'll find it really interesting. Take a look at what we talked about. I'll be back at the end of the video with all the links to all his channels. Otherwise, enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to Disney4Brits. I'm David. As you know, I've got an amazing treat for you today. Joining me today is Ken Pozek. Ken, tell everybody a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name's Ken Pozek. I'm in Orlando, Florida. We live 5 minutes from Disney, which is amazing. And I'm not originally from here, though. We moved here from another part of the country. I'm a real estate agent, but also a YouTuber. So we put out content every week around real estate, theme parks, and living in Orlando in order to help inform our potential consumers, our potential buyers and sellers about what's going on here in Orlando.
And I came across Ken a few years ago, pre-COVID, when he was talking about all the amazing things that you can do in the States and how to get properties. Now, I'm lucky enough on the channel to have a whole load of people that comment on things. And one thing that I get asked all the time is, we want to buy a place in Florida. How do we do it? So I thought, well, there's no point in me just doing Google research. Let's talk to a real expert about it, which is why Ken's joined me today. And Ken, I really appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy with everything you do. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to start out a bit with buying a home in Florida. I know things are completely different in the UK, but could you talk to us a little bit about the challenges of buying a home in Florida, particularly for the rental market? Because we can only come over there for 3 months a year generally, and therefore we'd love to rent it out for the rest of the time and get it to pay for itself. But it's not as easy as it sounds, is it?
No, there's definitely some things to go through, some hoops to jump through, and it might not be exactly as simple as maybe somebody who lives here with that's an American resident, or if you will. But that being said, there's plenty of options, very good ones close to the parks that also rent out really well while you're not there. And I would say a very large subset of our business is helping both people from the UK and Canada are typically our two biggest international buyers. But it's different in a lot of different ways. One is how you pay for it, and then how do you utilize it after the fact.
So you have a thing called HOA, or Homeowners Association. I literally can't say it because we don't have it here. Can you tell us a little bit about those? Because they sound crazy powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting because people say, well, I bought a house, but I don't get to control my house. And you'll see kind of conflicting things online. But a homeowners association is essentially a governing body over these different neighborhoods. Now, not every one of them has them, although if you're looking to rent these out Airbnb after the fact, most of them will. And so an HOA is basically they're going to make sure that your grass is cut, and if they're not, they're going to fine you. If you have your paint is peeling on the exterior of their house, they're going to send you a notice. And so while you have to pay for these can cost anywhere from on the very low side $70 or $80 US a month, all the way up to $400 or $500 a month, and depending on the product and what the neighborhood offers. But the good thing about them is that it keeps the neighborhoods up and they look fantastic. And they also usually offer some sort of amenity. So that's not like a tax that the money doesn't go anywhere. Usually you're buying in with the rest of your neighborhood to pay for cutting the grass in the common areas, to pay for the pools. Sometimes it covers trash removal. And so every neighborhood's different, and that's why it can be so confusing. So sometimes it's cheap, sometimes it's very expensive. So understanding what that actually offers is a great question to ask.
And we have things like that here. I live in a grade 2 listed property, and there's a whole load of restrictions there. The property has to be painted every 7 years. I can't put towels out on the balcony. So there are restrictions of a similar nature here as well. It's just not the norm. I think it's fair to say when you buy properties in complexes such as Margaritaville and places like that, they have amenity fees on top, which they can go into the sort of low thousands, can't they?
Oh, easily. Yeah, they really can.
And you're paying there for the water park and all of the benefits of having all those great things with you. So the monthly mortgage payment is not the only thing you're going to have to pay for, which leads me on to the next thing, which I know is particularly challenging: home insurance. Now, home insurance in the UK, mine's £40, so $50 a month. I think Americans a whole lot, certainly in Florida, a whole lot more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, over the past 5 years, homeowners insurance in Florida has gone up almost 200%. So when I first moved here in 2016, our homeowners insurance was $1,200 a year, so $100 a month, not bad. And now our same exact coverage is now $2,400 a year. You look at some of the larger, more expensive custom homes, and you're paying potentially $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a year, and really everything in between. And so the thing, if you're looking at like a townhome per se, like the townhome, you'll see in your HOA costs that a lot of your insurance are included. So maybe you're only paying for the walls in. And so again, there's a lot of different kind of moving parts, but insurance has definitely become a lot more expensive.
Yeah. And from a language perspective, a townhome is what we call a terraced home. So houses all joined to each other. That's a townhome. We have a semi-detached, which are two houses joined together, or detached, which is a house on its own. And that tends to be single family. Is that what your terminology is there?
Yeah, if it's completely detached, we call it a single family. If it's if you're semi-detached or semi-attached, where you have
Yeah.
two, we call that a duplex.
Okay.
And then the row home or the terrace home we'd call a townhome.
Perfect. So we've talked about mortgage, we've talked about HOA, we've talked about insurance. The other thing, which even a few years ago was a massive challenge to people, but now is a crazy challenge, is energy. One of the things in the UK we do not need, unfortunately, is air conditioning. And I know in every Florida home that I go in, there's two things that are eating energy. One is the air conditioning to keep the house cool, and the second is the pool to keep you cool. And I'm guessing, they cost again two, three, $400 a year. Sorry, a month. Big money.
Yeah, it is. So it's if you have no pool, your energy costs are probably $200 to $300 a month, and then if you have a pool, that's probably tacking on anywhere. It depends. If it's gas, it's going to be a little bit more expensive these days. You have a gas heater or a gas to run or an electric to run the pump, but somewhere between $100 and just under $200 a month to run the pool.
So we're going back to the mortgage is not the only thing. So look, that's
Yeah.
a few things that people need to know about the difference. You mentioned some, there are certain areas. What are great areas for people if they were going to pull out a map of Florida now or come to you and say, Ken, look, where's a great place for us to look at a property? What sort of areas would you be directing people towards?
Yeah, I think so. First, you have to decide, how am I going to use this? So we have clients that come again from the UK that are like, hey, we want to buy in an area that's close to Disney, but we don't plan on renting it out at all. We just want to have it for the 3 months a year or 2 months a year and then go back home. And so you have to decide on your use. If you want to rent it out, not every homeowners association allows short-term rentals, and short-term rentals to us is anything less than a year. So if you're not going to go 12 months, it's a short-term rental. If it's a 6-month, a 4-month, a 3-month, a 2-day, those are all short-term rentals. And the areas that allow that, many people, if you're a Disney fan or you know of Orlando, like they think of Celebration very quickly. Celebration does not allow short-term rentals because they don't want it to feel like a hotel where people are coming and going. They want it to feel like a community. And so you have areas like Reunion, Davenport, West Kissimmee. Those areas have plenty of HOA that will allow the short-term rentals. And so there's plenty of them out there. There's actually some neighborhoods that are built strictly just for short-term rentals. And so in those neighborhoods, they have incredible amenities. The water park, the pool, are multiple pools. They'll have dining inside the neighborhood. They'll have walking trails and playgrounds and just all kinds of like over-the-top amenities, so that when you go to rent your place, it's going to rent much more easily.
Perfect. So there's a whole load of areas to go to. And I was there in May, and the building going on is immense. Are they building places for rental as well as part of all that, do you see?
They are, yeah. So there's what we call build to rent, and so that's an interesting new thing that we really haven't seen in Florida up until the past 2 years. The costs of rentals are going through the roof. Orlando was just named actually yesterday the third place in the entire country where people are moving to, and so they're moving here, getting jobs, or maybe working from home, and so rentals are getting very expensive for like an apartment. So now these builders are building entire neighborhoods that are strictly for rentals, and so whether it's the short-term side or the long-term side, again, just asking those questions, figuring out what's most important to you, and then we can help kind of direct you in that area.
And that's a really interesting link into the next thing I wanted to talk about was, how has COVID affected the housing market? Because going back maybe 10 years, we saw a really decent exchange rate. We saw house prices at a fairly reasonable level. And then it all went crazy and the prices just went up and up and up and up. Obviously, all the new building as well. And I've seen prices go crazy as well. How is it now? Is it still accelerating upwards or is it stabilizing? What's the market looking like?
I'd say we're in a very stable market. So, in some areas, prices over the past year have gone up 2% or 3%. And other areas, they've gone up to as much as 10%, the more high demand areas. But that all being said, I was not a fan of how fast things grew here in terms of pricing. Like, I know I'm a real estate agent, I make money off commissions, but I also want a very healthy, stable market for my kids and maybe my grandkids eventually one day to be part of. And so anytime you have hyperinflation like that, it's not a good thing. And so the fact that our interest rates have gone up on our mortgage side has really slowed down demand into a more normal cyclical kind of thing. And so I think it's a good thing. One of the things we didn't talk about was how to get a mortgage if you're from the UK.
Yeah, perfect.
So I would say 70% of our clients that are international are paying cash. The ones that are getting a mortgage, that 30%, there are mortgages for you. And so it's buying from out of state with no credit and that sort of thing. You're going to have to put a higher percent down. It's typically starting at 30%. Sometimes they ask you to go to 50%. And those interest rates are going to be a little bit higher than normal. And so in today's market, which is July of 2023, interest rates for somebody who is a citizen are about 7%. If you're an international client, you might be looking at 8 or 9% because it's a riskier loan. If you don't pay your mortgage and you disappear, they got to track you down and they got to, they'll take the house back for sure. But there's a little more risk for the banks there. So they charge a little bit more.
And again, is that something as a realtor that you can introduce people that provide those services to them? You've got some great guys and girls that you work with.
We do. I have 2 lenders in particular that's all they do is international lending. And so they're very familiar with the whole process.
So one of the things I remember I used to watch with interest was your conversation around supply and demand. This number of houses, this number of houses are actually up to be purchased. This number are sold, and there was a gap. Again, has that settled down as supply and demand sort of stabilized?
Yeah, there's still about, I would say it's about even. So I look at from an economic standpoint, the way that we determine if we're in a buyer's market or in a seller's market is the overall number of homes for sale, and how is the absorption rate. And to put that into perspective, so I looked at this morning, we have a 2.1 month supply of homes. So technically we are still in a seller's market, because we think that anything less than 3 months is a seller's market, 3 to 4 months is a balanced market, and 5+ would be something that you'd consider a buyer's market. Now, we haven't seen a buyer's market since 2017, 2016, something like that. And so, right as soon as I moved here, things changed. It's not because I moved here, but just happened to correlate.
It's the Pozek effect. That's what it was.
Exactly right.
So that's the end of part one. Everything you need to know about HOAs, that's Home Owners Associations. See, I can say it, and where are great places to buy your rental properties. Join me in part two, where we'll delve a little bit deeper into home ownership in America and the costs of things like electricity, mortgages, and house insurance. And that's going to be an ouch moment.
I'd love to hear from you. Give me some comments. And as our pal Mickey says, I'll see you real soon.